Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're joining us again this evening. We're always happy for people like you, people that are interested in what's happening in our cities. If you haven't watched our program before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities in CCX's viewing area to tell us what are the current and future things that are happening in that city. And then we do encourage you, if you're from that city, to take down the email and the phone number, so if any of the issues we talk about really resonate with you, you can be in contact with the person on the council. Because good government runs much better when there's a good flow of information back and forth between the public, the city council, the mayors, and the staff. So we're glad that you're with us. And we're very happy too that tonight Mayor Kathi Hemken from New Hope is with us again.
Thank you.
We've had you on before.
You have.
So we're happy to have you back.
Thanks.
And then you already know I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out to our wider audience. People that aren't in New Hope might not know a lot. So if you can give them a little background information.
My name is Kathi Hemken. I'm the mayor of New Hope. I have been for 9 years. This is my 3rd term that I'm serving. Started that about a year ago, so I've got 3 more years on this term. Absolutely love the job. I have a fabulous council to work with and a really good staff that supports everything that we do.
Oh, that makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference.
And then I asked you to think about what are some of the areas that residents are concerned about. You might hear from them, or they might write or email you.
Well, whenever we have a project, we try really hard to make sure everyone knows about it. But of course, everyone doesn't read the information.
Right, right.
And so I get a lot of phone calls that say, well, I didn't know about that. And so we try to address whatever the council wants to address and whatever the public does. So we were getting a bunch of phone calls about organized garbage collection.
Oh, right.
So we did some research on it. We haven't discussed it much as a council, but we've got some information. You can't really make a decision unless you know what you're talking about.
Oh, true.
And so we're collecting information on that. I'll get quite a few calls about our housing and the road construction, and of course now the snow and the sidewalks and things like that. But it's our job as a council to answer our citizens' questions.
Oh, definitely. Now, we talked about a number of issues before, and one of the ones I thought we'd start with would be road construction, because everybody has some of that doing. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, each city has slightly different plans that they have for accomplishing that in the city. So maybe you can tell us about New Hope's overall plan for road construction.
Well, New Hope a few years ago put in a plan in which they add about 15% to your taxes.
Okay.
And that's going to cover all the road construction. So when we do road construction, nobody gets assessed for it. So instead of getting that $6,000, $7,000 bill, it's just part of your taxes. Of course, you're paying for it, but you're paying for it in little segments, and the whole city is paying for that. So with that said, we have developed a 10-year plan.
Okay.
So we know which streets we're going to work on. By this plan. Well, the plan obviously changes because if all of a sudden we have a water main break, that's like the one they had on 694, or if we have a lot of potholes that need to be looked at, that'll change, and we'll either bring something up or move it out. But we have the plan, and so we know about what it's going to cost every year.
So where are you in your 10-year plan?
Well, it's a moving plan, of course. It's always 10 years out. So in 18, what we're going to do is Boone Avenue from 36th to 49th, I think. And no, 42nd, from 36th to 27th, I'm sorry. So this year we're going to do Boone Avenue from 27th to 42nd.
Okay.
And they look at the complete streets, it's called, whether or not we're putting in bike lanes on both sides or one side. In some cases, we have off-street trails that are put in. So we look at this, and then we have an open house and listen to what the residents want. And there's some things that we know we have to do. And those things, those aren't debatable. But whether or not the bike trail is off-street or on-street, that makes a difference. Then we listen to the residents.
Now, our cities have all been here for quite a while, so one of the things with street construction is sometimes you're dealing with the trees that are in the boulevard, Maybe you can talk a little bit to that.
Well, a couple things. If the city has a 15-foot setback, and so anything in that setback is actually the city deals with.
Right.
When we do total reconstruction, that means we're digging down and we're taking everything out, putting the pipes in. When we do that, obviously, we're cutting through the roots of trees, and we know those trees aren't going to last.
Right.
And they're going to die, and when they die, then it's the residents' responsibility. And so when we're doing a complete reconstruction, we take down all the trees within a 15-foot setback. When there's just a mill and overlay, which is a lot of what we're doing on Boone, we save the trees that we can, but if it's an ash tree, those ash trees are all going to have to come down anyway. The city is putting a lot of money into a pot in which we're spending to take these ash trees down, and then the citizens get to pick out a tree that they want as a replacement. And it won't be quite as near to the street as the other one was. When they first put this in, first of all, the streets weren't as wide as they were, and they never really thought about that. A lot of times these trees and the roots are doing damage to the pipes.
Now we'll switch gears a little bit, and all of our cities are doing development or redevelopment, and the New Hope, I guess it's redevelopment, right? But maybe we can talk about some of them, starting out with Parkview on Winnetka, which is like about Winnetka and 50...
It's just south of Bass Lake Road, right next to the CVS.
Right.
What was there before was the Winnetka Learning Center, and there was a big soccer field there. A few years ago, the city actually bought Winnetka Learning Center because we knew this was going to be a very valuable piece of property. They let me be in a front-end loader and actually start knocking the building down, which was kind of fun. Well, shortly after we bought that, Parkview came to us and said, we want to put a development in there. It's Central Homes is the developer. And what they had proposed is 60 homes, 31 of them detached townhomes, and 29 were single-family homes. We said, we want to make sure you sell the home before you build it, so there was no speculation. They thought it was going to be a 2 to 3 year plan. Here we are a little over a year later, and all the houses have been sold.
Very popular.
This is about a $20 million project, and that's a $20 million shot in the arm for us. I mean, it really, the taxes on these places, the single families were selling for $380 to $400. I think the highest one went at $420, and the detached townhomes were selling for about $320 to $350. So it's really an upscale housing project that they're put in. And if you haven't seen it, it's just beautiful.
Now, scattered site housing is something that a lot of our cities do. People might not be real familiar with what it is, except they see the term once in a while. But maybe you can talk about kind of what the purpose of that is.
Well, there's a program called Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. And the guys say it so fast, I'm not sure what they What it basically does is it allows us to buy houses that haven't been maintained well, or have gone into foreclosure. We're very careful what we're buying because we're not paying full market value for these houses. And the reason we do this is we want the neighborhoods to look good. We're trying to keep our housing stock. This is an older community, and some of these homes have been here a long time. A lot of them are wonderfully maintained, but you have that one in the neighborhood that isn't. Somebody has died, somebody has just left the home. And so that's what this money is for. We buy the house, tear it down, and then sell the land to a developer. So we actually interview developers and look at what they're proposing for the piece of land, and then the city council makes the decision on which developer to go with. And the other part of that is that house has to be sold to a single family, not rented. And so mostly we've taken houses and we've torn them down. A lot of them were on double lots. So we got 2 houses for the price of 1. Right now I think we've bought and sold 7, and we're working on 6 more. One of those houses had a good foundation on it, and so rather than tear the house down, we're renovating. When I say we're not doing the work, of course. They don't let me have a hammer. So we've hired somebody that does the renovation, and then we will sell the house. We don't want to be in the real estate market, but we also want to make sure that our houses and our housing stock is kept up.
And then that kind of keeps the neighborhood looking better,
The neighbors love the program. But it's city government, and it takes a while. So they see this ugly house, they want it gone tomorrow afternoon. Well, it takes a while. But we'll get there. We'll get there. We're doing well.
Partly the houses that been repossessed get to be part of this program too, right?
Yes. And, you know, foreclosures take forever.
Right, right.
And we don't have eminent domain anymore. I mean, that's
True,
been gone for
true,
quite a
right.
while. So we just can't go in and say, I don't like the looks of your house, we're going to take it. We have to wait for it to either become available. What we do want the people in the neighborhoods to do is call us.
Oh, right.
And tell us that there's a house that we know is abandoned, or it needs some fixing up. Just thought you'd be interested in it. And we'll go by and look and see if it makes sense to do that.
Oh, yeah, we'll encourage people out there to do that in all of our cities, because sometimes it takes a while before that information percolates to the city. And then another project that's underway is by the company of Aladdis, and it's a luxury apartment. You want to tell people, especially people that aren't from New Hope, where that's located?
Right on Bass Lake Road, we have our golf course, of course, on the north side. Right next to that, on the west side of that, there were 5 old apartment complexes there that were really in poor shape. And because they were kind of built on a lower swampy area, they were flooding, and the police were there all the time. We knew those had to come down. So I believe in 2008, the city bought those, and we tore them down. And they had a developer at the time. And that, you know, the whole market crashed.
Everything went down,
And so we lost that developer, and the land just sat there. A couple years ago, Aladdis came to us and said, we'd like to propose 182 units with underground parking, and it's going to be high-end housing.
Which New Hope doesn't have any
New Hope does not have. We have some co-ops that are very nice and high-end, but we don't have a lot of high-end apartments. And I said, really, you think the market's there? And they said, absolutely, the market's there. And I think that with Parkview, we've seen that the market is there. And there's a lot of people that love New Hope, don't want to move out of the city, but the houses are getting harder to maintain. And so they're looking for an apartment. So these apartments, they tell me that the studios will be a little over 1,000, and the 3 bedrooms should be about 3,000. And they'll have all kinds of amenities like a gym and an outdoor pool and the barbecues and, you know, the fun little stuff they have. And right next to the golf course. And that's a real selling point. They're calling it Ironwood, which to most people they wouldn't get it, but it's
if you
part
think
of
golf course.
golf course, irons and woods. So, they've started to put in. First, they put the pilings in. About 700 of them, because it is swampy land. So this building is going to be built on stilts, basically. They've put the garages in. They will landscape up so that they actually will be underground. But what you're seeing now is you're seeing them above ground, but they'll just kind of be underground. And then the building will be 4 stories. And it'll be shaped like a big C, and the C will face the golf course. And there'll be a pool then in the middle of that C. They're looking at, depends on who you ask. Some people are saying the end of December of 18, a year from now, and some people are saying spring of 19. I'm guessing that, who knows? The building will go up and it'll look like it's ready, but there's a lot of internal stuff that has to be done before
once they
that.
get the outer part done.
They're hoping to have a 0 footprint, as a carbon footprint of 0.
Yeah, they're doing
so
something interesting.
They're really doing some kind of interesting things. The city did help them with a heating and air conditioning system that they're putting in. All of this stuff is just going to make it more green, and we're really looking forward to this. This is
and there's a group called LEED that measures
LEED
measures how economically efficient. So that it would qualify for that, right?
It would. The problem with being LEED certified is there's a lot of paperwork that goes with it. And I think Aladdis is following a lot of the principles, but I don't know if they've decided to apply for the LEED.
All the paperwork
This one is about a $27 million project. Every time we get a project like that in that kind of dollar amount, even though we might be giving them TIF money, tax increment financing money, we get that back in taxes. And if you think of this big piece of land that was sitting there for 9 years with nothing on it, now all of a sudden we're getting taxes on $27 million of the property. Makes a huge difference. So as we do these developments in and upgrade the city, it makes our tax base look much better.
Right. And then you still have some open houses on the project left to go? Because you've had some already, right?
On the scattered
For the
site?
neighborhood, on the lattice one.
Oh, some steps to do, yeah.
Yeah, right. Or the next steps that are
So
going to happen.
pretty much we've done all of the steps with Atlantis.
Okay.
So we've given them the TIF money. We've agreed to the TIF money. They get
Oh,
it.
right.
They get it as they
need it,
need
right.
it as the project goes on. So pretty much their next step is we'll have our inspectors. They're on site anyway,
Right.
looking to make sure that everything is done like it's supposed to be done. We don't want to have a Golden Valley thing where they stop
Right,
the construction
right.
because the wood wasn't certified.
Oh.
So they're there watching to make sure everything,
Right.
and Duran is the builder of that. We're just being very careful, and when it's done, they'll start having meetings, neighborhood meetings.
Right.
But right now, there's really nothing.
Nothing's happening right now.
Nothing. Well, they're building, but there's nothing to have a meeting
Right,
about.
right.
And so as this thing starts to take shape, they'll start having neighborhood meetings, and we'll, like we do anything, we'll send out letters 500
Right.
yards around there.
Uh-huh.
And we'll also put it in the Post, and there'll be things on TV, and people will know that
Right.
it's going up.
Now, are there some new businesses that have been coming into New Hope while we're on the redevelopment
there's
part?
tons of new businesses coming in. Some of the bigger ones, there's a place called Safe Point,
Okay.
and they're moving into 169 right across from Candu Canines. That's
Oh,
about
right,
on 58th or something
Yeah.
like that. Safe Point it's going to be an indoor gun range. They'll have weapon for sale, and they'll have training areas. They're planning to do some corporate events. These guys are very highly federally inspected, as well as working with our
Right,
police chief.
right.
So we know exactly what they're doing. They're putting in a lot of security. This is not a shoddy
Right,
operation at
right.
all. So that's one of the ones that's going in. There's a gas station that's going in on Bass Lake Road,
Oh, right, right.
where the old tuxedo shop is. So we just approved that. There's a couple self-storage places that are going up. Self-storage is one of those interesting things. When the whole market was depressed,
Right.
nobody was building anything.
Right.
So now people are moving, and they've got stuff.
Yeah, what to do with it, right.
And so these self-storages, it seems like there's a lot of them lately.
There are.
But they seem to fill up, and people
They
just
need
love
them,
them.
so.
They need them. And then there's little businesses coming in. There's a laundromat on 42nd that's going in where an old gas station was. So the whole city is just being revitalized,
Oh, it
just
is.
little
It
by
is.
little. We like it.
Right. Now, we've talked a little bit last year about affordable housing, but there's some issues that I'm watching and reading in the newspaper, so I thought we'd check with each one of the cities again. Has the New Hope Council spent much time talking about this area? Because there is some pressure from the Met Council in this whole process.
What we're talking about is where we are.
Okay.
We have 943 low-income housing units in New Hope, which is really a lot.
Right.
90% of our rental stock is affordable.
Right.
Now, there's two words here: affordable and low income.
Yes.
So low income refers to the person's income,
Right.
of course, and affordable is they have to make 80% of the average amount of money that they make in the city. So that would be affordable housing.
Right.
Well, what has been happening is companies are buying these. We have a lot of old
Right.
old buildings. They're built in the 60s, and they need some updating. Folks are buying them, and of course, when you update, you're putting money into it.
Right,
When you're putting money
right.
into it, you raise the rent.
Right.
So with 90% of our housing stock being affordable, the Met Council isn't putting much pressure on us for affordable
Right,
housing.
right.
We have a lot of affordable housing.
Right.
And a lot of it's very nice, a lot of it's kept up, some not so much. But when a business comes in, and just recently somebody came in and bought Chardon
Okay.
Court right on Boone Avenue.
Right.
Of course, they're doing a bit of remodeling. Chardon Court's been well maintained.
Oh, right.
But with that, they're raising the rents.
Uh-huh.
And of course, if you're on a fixed income and you've lived there a long time,
Oh,
it's very
right,
difficult. Even $20 rent increase
be-
is
right.
a lot. And so we understand that, but the city does not get involved in finding housing for people.
Right.
We can give them, we've got a nice brochure at City Hall they can pick up, which lists all the affordable housing in it, the low-income housing.
Oh, that would be helpful if somebody's having to move, right?
Yep, they can simply go to City Hall and pick it up, or they can call, and I believe we'll mail one out to them if they need it, and it'll help them to find a place to live.
Right. Yeah, because there's always change going on, and how to adapt and adjust to it.
There is, and you know, it just, I know we need housing for our new teachers,
right.
our teachers' aide, our workers at the nursing homes. I know we need housing for that, and those aren't real high-paying jobs.
Right.
And I would like to have them live in New Hope, but we do have a lot of that housing, and so that's why it's so exciting to see this upper end housing, because we don't have any of that at all.
And have you had any discussions, because part of that whole process from the Met Council is emphasis on high-density housing? Have your council or your staff done anything in regards to that?
Well, we've looked at we have a lot of high-density housing. Like, if you look at St. Therese,
right.
St. Therese is not just a nursing home. It's also a lower-income, affordable housing unit. It's over 55, of course.
Right.
Very high density. Northridge is the same way. There's some over 55 housing for them there. Broadway Village, there's quite a bit of that high density. We're not looking like what's happening in Golden Valley. We're not looking at that kind of high-rise, high density, just because we don't have a lot of land that's available for that. And we have a lot of density at the moment. And so we're talking about it. We want the council to be informed, so we can inform our citizens, but this is not something that we're pushing for at the moment.
And then there was some protest by some cities to the Met Council saying, if we already have affordable housing, you shouldn't assign as much percentage to us, right?
Yeah. Well, that's, just Brooklyn Center is a good example of that. Almost all of the housing in Brooklyn Center is affordable housing.
Right.
That really isn't fair to ask them to put in more. Brooklyn Center is a city like ours that is pretty landlocked. There's not a lot of extra. So are they supposed to tear down housing and put in high density? That's not always a good plan either. So I think sometimes the Met Council has to take a step back and go, okay, these guys don't have much affordable housing, and these guys have a lot of affordable housing. We happen to be in the category of a lot of affordable housing. For a couple reasons. One, we have the nursing homes. We have St. Therese and Northridge, which adds a lot to our affordable housing, but it's for seniors. But we also have a lot of those 4- and 6-plexes that are quite reasonable.
And the people doing the initial planning for the city of New Hope kind of scattered all of the apartments throughout the city rather than putting them all in one big.
Well, that's part of our comprehensive plan. We look at, every year we have to do, or every 10 years, we have to do a comprehensive plan, so that we look at all of the housing in the city and we target where we need to either replace it or go in there and find somebody to help fix it up or do something different. So that we call them targeted housing. So that when somebody comes and that seems like a reasonable plan to put either more density or just fix up what's there, it's in the comp plan.
Now, New Hope had an unfortunate incident in their Hidden Valley Park. There was some vandalism. Maybe you can talk about what happened.
We did. We don't know who did it, but they do know that propellant was used, and somebody started the tot equipment on fire, and pretty much damaged it all. So with that, we do have a sign up looking for a reward. We couldn't figure. Nobody drove by to look, so it's either $1,000 or $500. I don't know what it is, but we don't know who did it, and at this point, I'm not sure we're going to be able to. So typically what we do when we're going to redo a park is we send out a notice to the neighbors. The neighbors come in, we show them the park equipment that we're proposing for them. A lot of times the neighbors come in with kids, And the kids help us pick out the equipment.
Oh, right.
In Hidden
right.
Valley, though, they sent out these notices and nobody showed up. So then the Park and Rec Department just chose the equipment.
Right.
Some of that is being covered by insurance. But the improvements, of course, aren't.
Right.
So the insurance will pay for the equipment that got damaged, but the equipment was sitting on sand, and now we want to put it on something that's more ADA accessible.
Right.
And so that's on our dollar. So the Park and Rec Department will be putting some money into this. I'm guessing they're not going to be able to do this till spring. But in the spring they'll have new Todd equipment.
And if people are interested in the neighborhood, they can be a part of the process, right?
Yes. When you get the notice and you're interested in what's going in there, they'll tell you where to go and what time and show up, because we really all our other parks, we've always gotten the neighbors to come in, and they're the ones that have picked out what's going in that park. That's how we ended up with the double zip line at at Northwood Park, because a neighbor said, why don't you put in a zip line? And another neighbor said, well, let's put in two. And so that's how we ended up with that. When nobody shows up, then the Park and Rec Department has to make the decision.
Right.
And they're very qualified to make that.
Oh, of course.
But neighbors know who lives in the neighborhood.
Right.
And Park and Rec doesn't necessarily know.
And part of your Park and Rec system are your skating rinks in the winter. Maybe you can update us on what's happening there, since our weather has definitely turned towards skating weather.
Well, the skating rink should be open the 16th of December. Now, I'm going to tell you the skating rinks, and then I'm going to tell you the little process of how that works. So Lions Park, Hidden Valley, Liberty, and City Center Parks are the four that will have the skating rinks. So what happens is, just because it's cold and just because it's snowed doesn't mean you have a skating rink. So we have the Public Works guys going out with hoses, and they, like twice a day, they hose this down. It takes many, many applications, and it has to be freezing, of course. So it will take them a week, 2 weeks, sometimes more, to get that down. So even though we've set a date of the 16th, your skating rink might not quite be ready. But we're trying really hard. But it does take a long time to do that.
Oh, I didn't realize that they had to put down several
layers.
Well, and it has to stay cold long enough.
Well, the problem is it has to be a thin layer.
Right.
They can't just go dump, a million gallons of water there, because it'll just seep all over. So they kind of build it up, and then they have to spray it and spray it and spray it, and it just takes forever.
And those four parks get quite a bit of usage too.
They do. There'll be warming houses at some of them. Not sure that all of them will be. And of course that's a cost, because somebody's got to open the warming house up, somebody's got to, we've got to heat it and all that other stuff. So if the park's there, use it. And quite frankly, if the ice is there and it's usable and we haven't come out to clear the ice, get your shovel. And go shovel off that. If you want to skate, go shovel off that ice and skate.
Well, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you
for sharing your experiences and your time with our audience out there. And then we'll encourage those of you out there to tune in next week for part 2 of New Hope's Issues. We're glad that you've been with us, and we'll look for you again next week. Bye.